All right, welcome back, welcome back. That was AJ and Noelle and AJ with Out and About. They were learning how to do that
I learned that
Afro
one.
dance. Yeah, it was this, and then there was a run
Oh,
and
I
a
did it
leg
wrong?
jump. Yeah, you see, yeah, there was a leg jump and all that. But you know what? Those two men, they're so cool. And to make things even better and sweeter, they will be in with us next week, Friday, when we host the Summerfest. I can't wait, Marlene.
That's right. I can't wait to hear about their summer. They've probably had the best summer.
Yeah,
with
they
all
probably
the fun
did.
they've been having.
Yeah, they did, I'm sure. So we'll be chit-chatting with them, and then, of course, we'll be kicking off the show. It's going to be a great one. That's next week, Friday, Summerfest, live right here on 5.
That's
now,
right.
let's move on into our second conversation, Marlene. Now we've got in with us, we have Ashley Longsworth. She is a marriage and family therapist. Good morning and welcome.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you guys again.
It's nice to have you in.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're pumped up after that African dance and formation.
Just a little bit. It woke me up a little bit.
Well, Ashley, you know, I think this is kind of like the opposite end of what we see with Ashley, with Noelle and AJ. They're having a great summer, but we must acknowledge that not all kids are coping as well during this time. And so today we want to talk to parents about how to notice signs that their kids are not doing well. Let me start off there. What's it like on your end? What are you seeing with clients?
Yeah, so right now, kids are taking a toll on online learning, right? Some are on summer break right now, but some had to do summer classes, and they're still doing online learning. So this was packages, and then this was virtual, right? We were expecting our kids to sit in front of a paper and be engaged and complete work, right? Imagine doing this as an adult. Right? Sometimes you get bored, sometimes you get distracted. Imagine a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old asked to learn a new topic every 2 weeks, sometimes without help, right? Sometimes parents are working, parents can't speak English, there's no older sibling to help them with this, but there's still an expectation that they pass classes and that they do well. So we have a lot of kids coming in that are lacking any motivation to get work done. And parents are thinking that maybe it's just them not wanting to do work, they're wanting to do other things in the house and they're not interested. But think about how hard it is for kids to be engaged. And even high schoolers that are doing online. Sometimes teachers are engaged and sometimes they're not. Students aren't able to sit from 8 in the morning until 12 without a break. Right? But they're tasked to do that. And sometimes they just don't want to or are not interested in being a part of it. And you find kids just not participating in online, doing something else,
shutting down
while they're doing online, telling their parents that they're doing their classes and they're not doing it. Right? Then we have the kids that got discouraged from day one and are not in school right now because of the platform, right? So we have a lot of stressed out kids, a lot of kids with time on their hands.
Let me come back to it because there's a lot of debate over which one is the best, and we're really figuring out our way through the pandemic. I love when you talk about whether or not I want to sit with a 10-page packet and sit and do that as an adult. You know, when you're talking about a younger child, that's harder. But even online, a lot of the online isn't live because you can't get all the kids at the same time. And that type of communication, it's one way, which makes it more, it's just more difficult.
Of course, right? You are a teacher trying to engage with multiple students and you might not be able to do that. You know, you see screens, you see students there, but measuring their level of engagement, measuring if they're even interested in being there is difficult. And I imagine a teacher, the role to have that responsibility to take care of these kids that are watching you, making sure that they're doing their work is difficult. You're not in their home, you know?
Having to answer questions, having to teach them how to be social beings, which is a natural part of them, especially at a young age. So, sure, go ahead.
And that is a shift that is happening right now, right? I've had a lot of teenage, like adolescents, so let's say maybe like 13, 15, that come in and tell me that they have more online friends than they do physical friends, right?
Wow.
So there has been a lack of seeing friends, and they've made new friends online, right? They have different platforms. They talk about different chat rooms that I have no idea about. I'm sure parents don't even know that some of these things exist. And they'll tell me that they have friends from Belize, from different countries that they talk to because they have no one else to talk to.
You're
You know,
Okay.
look, I'll tell you
Share.
what. My daughter, they're so into Roblox and these things, and my daughter would say, all right, Dad, I'm going to play Roblox and talk to my friend from Australia, and I'm like, who in Australia were you know, you know? But and the thing about it, that's now actually the online thing. As a matter of fact, what's going on right now is that they're actually making games whereby it's an online world. So the children
Yes.
no longer want to socialize outside. Their socializing is going into virtual reality and going into a world online.
Yes, it is. You see it a lot in video games. I mean, it doesn't even have to be the virtual reality. There are things like Free Fire and PUBG. These things allow people to talk to other people while they're playing games,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're so engaged with the person that is there that they don't have to socialize with anybody in the house, with anybody else.
Is this a good thing?
Right? So that's the big question. Is it a good thing for my child to just be isolated all day? Right now, that is their outlet for social activity. And to measure it, I would say that is very case dependent, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
How do you tell your child you can't go anywhere, you can't see anyone, and you can't talk to anyone as well? You know, how they're trying to find other people to relate to, right? They can't go outside and play ball all the time, so they could play a game with somebody that's a shared interest.
Okay.
And
But at the same time, and Marlene, I just have to throw this in as a parent. One of the
I'll
things
speak
as
on
well.
behalf of your child.
Yes.
Who we talking about here?
Oh, for my child.
Yeah, which one?
Sky.
Sky. I
Sky
got
is
your
10
back,
years old,
Sky.
going on 11 years old. But one of the things I also notice on these platforms is that they actually allow for them to build a character. So they no longer see themselves as who they are.
Oh.
They see themselves, and I'm not saying Sky does this, but they actually see themselves as the character that's in the game or whatever they're playing. And what that does for them as well, and this is what I feel, is that they no longer are accepting of who they really are physically. They want to look like that. I'm not saying that Sky does this. I'm saying that this is actually a
But
part of the study
concerns
as
you
well.
that that's something
It
there.
does
yeah.
concern me as a parent because you're building a character and hoping that that's who you really are. You go on the street and you have that sound. You walk or you play around with your friends when they do come around, and that's who you want to portray. How dangerous is this?
you know what? That is a good point, because there is more exposure to social comparison, right? And now that you are virtually making friends socially, they don't really need to know who you are in real person. You know, you can portray yourself as what you think is accepted by society.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm a popular person that has a lot of friends, and this is what I do. I do all the cool things. I have all the cool gadgets. This is who I am, right? And it can be associated a lot with kids having access to a lot of information on social media, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much influence as to what is acceptable, what looks good, what looks cool, and who they should be. Yeah.
So there's a plus to having the kids play interactive games where they're talking and socializing with other people. But the responsibility that comes with that is being able to ensure that they're not being exposed to anything dangerous.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the first thing about these games. If I'm a parent, I wouldn't know what to look for.
Yeah.
How do I check in to ensure that my child is safe?
This can be so difficult, especially for parents that are not technologically savvy, right? They don't know the first thing about even opening their phone or tablet to figure out what apps to go into.
Yeah.
Right? But this is where transparency has to happen. You have to monitor what your kids are doing. Hey, you downloaded this game. Can I see what it's about? Can you tell me what it's about? Can I see what you do on it? Can you play it in front of me? If your kids can't play something in front of you or be on a kind of social media in front of you, that is a red flag,
That's a red flag.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily that you're going to peep over their shoulder, but if they are hesitant about even being around people, that means there's something to hide,
Yeah.
right? It's really a matter of monitoring what they're doing. I mean, you can't necessarily watch everything that they're doing because kids will find access to anything, you know, there's videos, there's other things that they will look at. But then if you're saying, okay, I'm okay with you having these things, just let me know what you're going on and what you're doing. You don't need to hide anything from me. You know, if I'm not okay with it, I'll let you know.
So these are some of the, I like that. If they can't play it in front of you, be concerned. I think that's one easy way to start.
Yeah.
But I want to move on to the next point because I think this is a key matter. Children may not be coping well with their mental health. They may be having challenges, but they show it differently than we do.
Yes. All right. So children show things different than teenagers and adults.
Okay.
Right? So children tend to show things a bit more subtle. They won't say, hey, I'm having a bad day, I'm so distressed, I'm so tired, this is stressing me out. They might don't know that language, you know? What is stress to a 7-year-old? They might not know how to say it, like what that means. But you might have a child that says, hey, I feel like nobody talks to me anymore. Why don't you guys want to come around me? My big brother is not hanging out with me. They might be crying. They might say, I feel like I'm being treated unfair.
I'm bored.
I'm
when
bored.
They say that all day, every day.
Right? But what will we do as parents? We would say, you know, find something to do constructive because you're bored. You know, you have nothing to cry for. You know, find something to go play with by yourself if you can't get along with your sibling, right? So there's kind of like this minimizing of a real issue for a child, right? It's like, you're fine, this is something small.
You don't got no worries.
Yeah.
But you have to compare it to your stressors that seem very real. This is very real to a child, right? A child that is not employed or working or anything like that, they don't have that type of stress. They have the stress of learning to engage with new people, learning to share things, learning to get affection from others, learning what they want to receive in form of love and communication from others, and explaining that these are their concerns right now. And so when they say, hey, I didn't like when you do that, that hurt my feelings, it's valid. You know, what they're saying is valid, right? A 7-year-old telling you, Mommy, I didn't like when you shout at me, is valid, right? It's not just a 7-year-old saying something and you dismiss it, right?
And when kids say things like that, or when you start to see some of the behaviors that you outline, how serious should you take it?
It's all a matter of communicating with your child. It's an acknowledgement of what they're saying, right? So, all right, your child might say something like, let me use that same example. I didn't like the way that you talked to me, right? Instead of just brushing it off, you can say, okay, what is it that you didn't like? You know, is it something that I did before? Regardless of whether or not you will still punish your child or whatever, it shows that I am listening to the words coming out of your mouth and I am acknowledging you. So your child will know that it's okay for me to express how I'm feeling, and if something would be happening that's completely off, I can tell my mom or my dad or my guardian or whoever, hey, something is off with me, right? Now, concerning behavior to notice from a child that doesn't speak, you know, we have a lot of families in Belize that do not talk about emotions, right? We learn not to cry, we learn not to speak about issues and conflict
And feelings.
and feelings, right? You kind of just have to deal with it. So this can be your child isolating themselves. If you have a child, for example, that's very extroverted from they were a toddler, they run up to people, they talk to people, they smile, they laugh, and then you notice as their child got older, and especially in this pandemic time, they started to isolate themselves. They won't come out in the common area with the family anymore. They're a bit withdrawn. They have no interest in getting out of bed. They have no interest in watching their favorite TV show or watching videos on YouTube, whatever it is that they do. They have no interest in doing things. They don't want to eat. They don't want to do school, right? These are very concerning behaviors.
yeah.
These are where parents should be like, okay, hey, this is not just my child acting up, right? Because that's how parents tend to interpret those types of behaviors. They would say my child is having an attitude, or my child is acting a certain way because she or he doesn't want to do something, right?
Well, and I also think too, it goes back to one of the things you said before, that we feel like children don't have stress or issues, and it's all theatrics. You know, if a child says, nobody love me, nobody won't play with me, we're like, oh, you know, they just want attention.
And the thing is, sometimes these things can be, kids can be saying that and they don't necessarily mean it, but it's for that, exactly for the attention. So then that should also be a sign for a parent. Why is my child feeling that they need to seek this attention from me? Is there some way that I am not connecting with them that they feel like they need to go this extra mile to get more attention from me?
So that's a red flag too when they say that.
Right? And then asking your child, you know, like you have to learn your child. So asking your child, you know, what would you like me and you to do together? Are there things that you wish you could do with me that we don't really do? Or how do you feel when I have to come home from work and I just go in my room because I'm tired? Do you wish that you could hang out with me a little bit? Like learning what would make your child feel as though they're receiving that love and connection from you, because then that would be why they're seeking attention, right?
Well,
Can children, I mean, we know teens get anxiety and depression, but can the younger ones get depression and anxiety?
Definitely, and they can, it's just expressed a bit differently, right? Like I said, kids won't say, hey, I'm depressed. You know, they might not know what that means, or they might say it, but they don't know what they're saying. But they will express it in ways and saying, you know, I feel sad, or you might see uncontrollable crying, or you might see more impulsive breakdowns, right? So it's like these very dramatic shows of reactions to things, like very angry all of a sudden, or getting very sad or very sensitive to criticism, right? And
irritability is also a
irritability is also a sign in kids, right? So it's more common in kids to show irritability when they're in these depressed moods as opposed to older adults. But they also show irritability, but it shows a lot, especially in younger boys, girls. And then parents now take this as, my child has an anger problem. My child is acting out and is having these outbursts. And they would bring them now to counseling and say, fix my child because they have this behavioral issue.
I was gonna say, I mean, that's an interesting point, but I was just thinking, okay, if I'm an 11-year-old and I'm depressed, you know, just all the changes, I'm not coping well, and so it manifests in irritability, which means I snap back at mom and dad because they didn't cook what I want, or they took away my phone, or because, I don't know, they just looked at me funny. And now, some may go into counseling, but I may be depressed, be irritable, and then be punished on top of it.
Yes, right? So that's why I always look at children that come in as part of a family unit, right? I do strongly believe that counseling with a child should also include their immediate support, whoever that is, whether it's a parent or guardian or a sibling, whoever is watching them, because they play a major role in their child feeling acknowledged for the things that they're feeling, right?
Yeah.
So I can work with a child in therapy and say, hey, your feelings are valid, but then if they go home and then they're being punished for those very feelings, or I teach them ways to express themselves, but it's not accepted in the household, then I'm doing damage.
Yeah.
Unless I understand what the family structure is like, what the parents accept and don't accept, then I can help this child to cope within their family setting. But then I also need the parents to be able to do some changes as well for their child to adapt.
Yeah.
Now
But
let's
you know
add
what-
the other layer of reality here.
Yeah.
Parents are stressed.
Yes.
Parents are depressed. Parents are worried about paying the light bill for them to keep charging the phone that they're crying for or snapping back for.
Yes.
You know, you add these and it's like a compounded situation. What?
It is, right?
Oh
So
my God.
this goes further than just an individual. We're talking about family stressors as a unit. Just let's picture a household where both parents were laid off, right? And now they're home and maybe they have about 3 kids that are enrolled in online learning. They don't have any gadgets for their kids to do this online learning. And they also are struggling to find work, right? This will probably highlight conflict between the couple in the relationship, right? There's economic issues. This might cause or lead to some kind of substance abuse. All of this will be happening in front of the children, right? Heightened irritability means that there is less, parents won't be able to control themselves to go behind closed doors to handle their conflict there. It might start happening in the kitchen, it might start happening in the living room. And then it becomes a thing where the kids are now a part or aware of the issue in a way that it wasn't spoke to them, but like they just know it because their parents spoke about it. So my mommy and my daddy go through money problems, that's why then they fight, right? So that's how they conceptualize it. It's not that mommy came to me and said, hey guys, this is what it means to not have a job. And we can't do things like how we used to. And right now we have to adjust. And so I can't get you the laptop you need for school. And so it might be a bit more difficult. Now that's different, right? But then when parents are having their stressors, sometimes it's difficult for them to even think about what their child is feeling emotionally. It's more, how do I meet their basic needs, right? And that's great, but an emotional need is also a basic need.
Wow.
This is tough.
Right.
For me, because I'm listening to it as a parent, and I wanted to jump in with one thing, that one of the ways that parents do make things worse, especially for a child who they might not be seeing the effects of what's going on, they try to replenish that with what they feel the child would like, a sweet,
Junk
chips,
food.
a biscuit. You know, so they give them junk food because this child is probably acting out in a weird way that you're not used to as the parent. So what we try to do now is that we try to stone them with things we feel that they like, so that we could quell the situation, when in reality we're actually making it worse. How do we deal with that?
Right? You are avoiding tackling the issue
The
at
issue,
hand,
yes.
right? Are you okay? You know, are you okay, daughter? Are you okay, son? How are you feeling?
Yeah.
Instead of that, we're saying, hey, we're all going through something rough here.
Yeah.
This will help you handle
Yeah.
it, right? It's like sometimes it's so difficult for people to just connect with the other person. And especially an adult to a child, with the generational gap, it's sometimes so hard for a parent to think about, how do I acknowledge these things? Because sometimes parents don't want to acknowledge it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does a parent that is struggling with emotional intelligence tell their child, tell me how you're feeling?
Yeah.
Right?
Do they automatically start? Like if I've never asked my child about their feelings before and I ask them the first time, are they going to naturally open up or I got to keep at it?
All right, so if in your family group, you have taught your kids, hey, we don't talk about things like that. Kids are seen and not heard. I don't need to hear what you need to say. My word is my word, and
My
you
word
do
is
whatever
supreme.
I
Yeah.
say.
Mhm.
If you ask your child how they're feeling, they probably will feel like they'll get punished if they say how they're actually feeling.
Okay.
Or they will feel like, should I be honest about this, right? So it has to be something that's modeled as well.
Okay.
Right?
So I can tell them I'm feeling sad
Yes,
today.
like, hey, mommy had a frustrating day at work today. That means that sometimes I just feel like I want to come home and relax a little bit and not really talk to anyone. That happens to everyone. Have you ever had things like that? And kids will express frustration in different ways.
Yeah.
But your ability to open it up will allow them to say, okay, this is a normal thing,
It is,
right?
it is, it
We
is.
could talk about these things.
Yeah.
Right? It's okay if I feel some way.
So you have these questions here, and I don't want to miss the opportunity as we quickly run out of time. Questions parents can ask children.
Okay, so this was specifically geared to
If they have
suicide
signs.
risk.
Okay.
Right? So with children, you can't outrightly, especially younger children, you can't outrightly say, have you ever thought about suicide? One, the parent might not feel comfortable. Two, the child might not be sure exactly what it is, or they might be feel wrong for saying that, right? So you have to ask them in a language that they will understand.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been feeling sad a lot? And what does sad mean for you? I mean, have you been crying a lot? Have you been feeling sad about mommy and daddy's relationship or about whatever? Like asking them, do you know what sadness is? That's part of them identifying emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are ways that you have felt sad?
Mm-hmm. Now the second question, that's what I wanted to get at.
Yes.
I don't know any parent who's comfortable asking that. This is me, I'm just guessing, right?
Okay.
How do you ask a child, have you thought about hurting yourself?
Right. All right, so you might not directly say exactly that.
Yeah.
Have you thought about hurting yourself?
Okay.
Right? But as a parent, you might be able to introduce a conversation by saying, sometimes people go through really tough times in their lives and they get really down and sad. And this might cause them to do things to their bodies that they didn't necessarily want to do, but it helped them to make them feel better in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So they would do this by making marks on their bodies, by punching the walls when they were angry, by hitting their heads on the walls, cutting themselves. Have you ever felt any of this? Like, have you ever been so angry that you felt like you just wanted to hit the wall, or you felt so sad that you wanted to get something and mark your skin? And they might say, no, mommy, no, I never feel
Okay.
right? But then it's also saying, even after that, it's okay if you ever feel like that. Sometimes I feel frustrated too, right? And before we reach that point, it's about learning how we can manage our emotions before it, right? So it's also the parent being comfortable, right? If you're not comfortable with this, then this conversation will not happen.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not
But
comfortable,
how important is it that you ask, especially if you're seeing the warning signs that you spoke of before?
it is important, right? You are the first people that will notice what's going on with your children, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to overlook something. You already know that it's happening. You have to accept reality. It is happening, right? Kids are being exposed to different things, and kids are sad, and kids are down, and they're not adjusting well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your child is not that much different than every other child.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a product of your parenting.
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be
Sometimes,
that.
yes, in abusive households. Let's
Of
say that.
course,
Yeah.
right?
But
So-
not necessarily all the cases.
And I think this is where parents need to be able to be objective with their child, right? Because it might be, a parent may feel like if I ask my child this question, it might mean that I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I'm the bad parent.
Yeah.
I'm the one, right? And they may be defensive about that. You know, all I do is I love you. I provide everything for
Provide
you.
everything
You know
for you.
how
I
you
do
could feel
everything.
this
Yeah.
way, right?
That's normally the response. That's normally the response. But you know, and I just want to chime in here. And I know that time is winding down. As a parent, I would like, because I totally get where you're coming from, but at the same time, it also put us, knowing the situation, somewhat in a backbencher, whereby you question your parental guidance or how you're doing it. But we must be cognizant that it's not only happening here at home in Belize. You know, I try to put myself in the position of saying, you know what, it's not like I'm doing bad. This is not only happening here at home. We're trying our best. We just need to try harder.
Yes, this is a worldwide phenomenon. You know, there are people conducting studies on children's mental health in the pandemic right now because it's so prevalent, because it's happening, because more parents are worried and kids are expressing different behaviors. So Belize is no different, right?
Yeah.
And it's just because we don't talk about it as much that we don't know how to highlight it, you know?
I mean,
Right.
let's be honest. We're doing the best that we can in being able to keep people safe.
Yeah.
But the way our children are living are not the way they're meant to live. Based on what we know is best for their development. They should be interacting, they should be socializing, they should be playing. But the circumstances dictate what we have right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ashley, you told us that you have been seeing of recent more and more children coming to you for therapy, and it's, you know, in several ways. Parents who bring them, and formally through the system, they're being mandated to get family counseling. From what you're seeing, we've always talked about Belize being a place where the village helps to raise the child. How can people help? Whether you're extended family, whether you're neighbor or church or pastor or co-worker, how can people help?
One, acknowledge that the child has their own emotions and feelings and that they can express that, right? Acknowledge that a child has their own mind. A child is not just seen and not heard. I mean, right? The first step is acknowledging the child. The second step is saying that you're going to do something about it. So parents, this can be things like finding other support for your kids. So you mentioned things like church. There are clubs, there are sports groups, there are things that can be done even in this pandemic. I've seen people do like small groups with kids and you know, neighborhoods just having little like book clubs and things like that. You know, there are resources that you can find to say, okay, my child is being isolated and I need to foster some connection somehow. My child isn't being stimulated the way that she needs to, so I'll figure that out. My child doesn't feel like she's getting the attention at home, I need to change, right?
Well,
All right.
well, Ashley, very eye-opening. I really and truly appreciate it from a parental standpoint. And of course, from all of us, from here, us here at Open Your Eyes, this was very eye-opening. We know that it was felt.
It's a tough conversation.
It
is a tough conversation, right?
And we don't want to think of our children suffering, but if we know that they are, then we can try to take steps to remedy it or help to make it a bit easier for them.
All right.
Yeah. Before, I just wanted to let people be aware, because I don't think people are aware. The Community Counseling Center under the Ministry of Human Development provides free counseling. It's free to the entire community, you know.
Is it still on Freetown?
No, it's at the hub. That is by
Wait,
Chetumal
yeah.
Boulevard.
Okay.
Right?
Chetumal Boulevard, yeah.
So they're in Belize City, Belmopan, and San Ignacio.
Okay.
Okay.
Right? So parents can access that services. And I also offer services in Belmopan and Belize City.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you do private and you also
I
do
do
some
pri-
at the community
yes.
center.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Ashley, we appreciate you coming in to have this conversation. It was a tough one. I have to tell you, it makes me a bit emotional, some of the things you talk about, but it is for parents who are worried about their children.
Yeah.
I hope that this helps to make them see and understand more.
All right, Ashley, thank you so very much. We're about to take a break, and when we come back, women over 40 years old, I tell you what, Karen Rosita is going to be in with us. She'll be showing you some workout routine, things you could do right there at home or wherever you are to make sure that you stay fit. Stay with us. We'll be back.